I actually love. There's a meme that the Middle Earth Mixer, he posts a lot.
Okay, yeah.
And it's King Theoden, and from it's quote from the movies of Lord of the Rings where Theoden say, um, uh, these. Oh, I can't even remember the original quote now. Basically saying that these alas that these evil days should be mine. That's how he says it. Alas that these evil days should be mine. And Middle Earth Mixer just blocks it out to where it just says these evil days should be mine. And it's like I've begun to adopt that attitude over the last year, 2 years or so, and it's an absolute game changer when you think, no, I'm glad that the hard years are coming in my lifetime as opposed to my grandchild's lifetime. Sadly, my kids are alive during this time too, so I can't say that they're going to avoid the hard struggles, but I'm hoping that the worst of it, that I could take the brunt of it so that my children hopefully won't, if we're living through a fourth turning, for those of you that are familiar with that phraseology, if we're living in the fourth turning, I hope that the fourth turning is wrapped up by the time my children come of age and have children, so that they don't have to deal with the brunt of it. And that's just an area that I've been trying to just constantly focus in on, and it really does change your attitude, and it makes you so much more anti-fragile.
Yeah, well, and I think our kids' generation will not grow up under a lot of the same illusions that our generation did. Not speaking necessarily in personal you me terms, but just our generation was taught that there is a realm of neutrality where everybody can set aside all their highest commitments, the things that mean the most to them. And we can come out here and we can do business and politics and everything will be fine because we've set up these neutral secular rules that everything's going to turn out fine. But our kids' generation can't afford to think in neutrality terms, can't afford to think in neutral public square terms. And that makes a huge difference. So I'm thankful that I know that my kids will have a very different childhood than I did in terms of the national landscape that they're going to be growing up in. Not necessarily at home, but they will have to deal with a different kind of world. And that world will explode a lot of the illusions that we're having to correct. We're having to, our generation, many people of our generation and older generations are having to relearn a lot of stuff. Whereas it's fresh for, I think that even, I think Zoomers are probably much more open to understand that the public square is not a neutral place, more so than older millennials, more so than, and like the myth of neutrality, you explain that to people. Okay, yeah, sure. I understand. I understand that everybody's trying to get me to do something. I understand that every message that comes from the media is trying to get me to behave in a certain way. Everybody just kind of gets that. And I think that that's at least, if it's bad for them in life, at least they won't have any illusions, or won't have the same illusions about it that previous generations may have had.
Right. And the polling agrees with you. I mean, the polling has showed that Gen Z is much more bifurcated. Like they're completely polarized in much more extremes. There's the middle has basically completely eroded in Gen Z, and it's frightening in a way. But to your point, it's also good to know, like, there's not this squishy middle that doesn't actually have any real convictions. It's nice to see people have convictions, whether they're good or bad. I mean, I'd rather know that someone is, completely against me than, think that they might be for me and then find out the hard way that they're not. So, yeah.
Well, and I wish, like I said, I wish that we lived in a place where there wasn't that stark of a difference between people, between political parties, or between being a divided nation is a bad place to be. But having clarity where those divisions are is helpful.
Yes.
So I think I've heard other folks say stuff like, "Oh, I'm thankful for political division because, well, at least now we know who's who." But there was a time when there weren't all these secret divisions, so that like the political neutrality thing happened as a middle thing between. Well, we didn't have the extreme amount of division. The division came, and then we pretended it wasn't there, and then the division grew under that umbrella of pretend neutrality. And then now we just can't pretend anymore. But I don't know. like I said, I'm at least thankful that my kids won't have that same kind of illusion.